That's more dangerous than I thought. Don't try this at home, kids. Hello, this is Joanna Blue with the Crash Course 2016 election. Now I know I'm no John Green, but trust me, I'm dirty enough. I mean, I literally made a video comparing community service and helium fusion within the sun's core. So today's topic is continuing our swing state series within the 2016 election, talking about the most important swingner of the bunch, North Carolina. And yes, I did just say swingner. Why? You'll just have to keep watching. Stanla, go to intro. North Carolina is a wonderful state, home to the largest production of sweet potatoes, thank you North Carolina, and the National Hollering Contest. No thank you North Carolina. But it is also an interesting state because it used to vote very much democratically, starting in 1952 and going all the way to 1960. So for about 100 years, the state was very much donkey, meaning democratic, and very little elephant, meaning Republican. But now, conservativeness has leapt forward. What observedly, yes, I just said observedly, darn it, I keep making up words. What observedly or seemed to cause this change was nothing in particular. The state has been a random mix of far-reaching elections throughout its whole history, such as the 1940 election between Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Wendell Willkie. You said Willkie. The 1940 election was separated by 48.06 percentage points, but there are also other particularly close elections, such as the 2008 election between Obama and McCain, separated by a mere 0.32 percentage points. Wowzer. This is exactly why North Carolina has been a swing state in recent years, as the polls have been extremely close, because the definition of a swing state or a battleground state, pew-pew, are states in which neither the Democratic or Republican candidates have the majority. And it can also refer to a state who is a major decider electorally in the election, which North Carolina may also be considered because it trumps, no pun intended, Iowa, Nevada, Maine, Alaska, 5 other out of the 8 involved swing states this year, with a grand total of, drumroll please, 15 electoral college votes, which throws Georgia another swing by only 1. Electoral college, we got a tale to tell. But if we don't have a football team. Sorry, not sorry that my childhood just made a comeback right now. America. Since the past 5 elections, North Carolina has started a pattern of fairly close elections consisting of the 2000 and 2004 being the most spread out, exacting 12.8% and 12.5% splits, and the other 3 elections of 1996, 2008, and 2012, the most recent, ranged from a whopping 4.7% and 0.32%, as mentioned earlier, to a 2%. I mostly said whopping because I was being sarcastic, but it's also fun to say. Whopping. All of those in the lead in the past 10 years have been Republicans, excluding 2008. And in the past 9 presidential elections, it's been Republican except for 1976 and 2008. Throw back to when I said 2008 like 8 times in this video, and it's not even Thursday. So, North Carolina is definitely a swing state because it is continuing its tradition this year in close polls with Clinton up only by 2.2% to Trump. Such a minuscule number, which could mean anything, to the historically up-in-the-air state, making it potentially the state of the year, because it could decide everything. Everything. Well, that depends which candidate you like better, and to quote the kids of America, no matter who wins, the world will end, and we will all die. Considering voter issues, North Carolina has similar dilemmas to the rest of the American people. Education being first, because education is key, then naturally jobs coming next, and welfare of the economy third. Typical. Although Democrats are more likely to cite education and Republicans the economy, which could be a gain for Hillary slightly in the state, but one's political party does not always discern their method of voting each year. What is not so typical, though, well, at least on something that heavily weighs down on states such as the northern ones, is North Carolina's special interest in racial justice. Seeing 22% of the population is black, therefore almost a quarter of the voters are potential minorities, not even including other people of color. This may prove Clinton to be the popular vote because of the tendency for her opponent's stance on immigration to be building a wall, which deals with the topic of discrimination so close to home for African Americans in North Carolina. But also, on the other hand, immigration is last on the list of important themes in North Carolina, so it may not matter for the success of Trump's campaign. Why are we rating important things? They are all pretty important. This system is rigged. Another tidbit, which according to Word, tid is not a word, kind of ironic when you think about it, is that North Carolina has some rocky voting grounds in the past few years, and no, I do not mean Rocky, the boxer, is buried underground soils in North Carolina. I mean, he can't be. He isn't even real. He just lives forever in our hearts. Although someone could have hated the movie so much that they buried them in their backyard, which would imply that Rocky Balboa is actually making their grounds rocky. As I was saying, ever since 2013, until this past January, there were sketchy voting laws in North Carolina, which could tip again the vote Democratic, and here's why. Let's go to the thought bubble. The 2013 legislation cut down early voting days, stole away with pre-registration for high schoolers under the voting age, that little thief, discontinued same-day voting, and last, but the most controversial of all, it required photo ID. I'm sure one could argue this is not a big deal, but assured, it is. It discouraged black voters in North Carolina because they were less likely to possess acceptable IDs than white voters. Even when a federal judge, Thomas Schroeder, attempted to save the law, the court he was arguing shot down his claims, saying, "In North Carolina, restriction of voting mechanisms and procedures that most heavily affect African Americans will predictably redound to the benefit of one political party and to the disadvantage of the other." Thanks, Thought Bubble. Another source said they targeted African Americans with almost surgical precision, like little tweezers and eyebrow hairs. Sorry, that was weird. But the point is, the black people of North Carolina are making a comeback this year, which again might majorly influence Clinton's shot, but again may not, because most of the state isn't black. Man, so many ups and downs, backs and forths. I'm just about ready to throw up on this roller coaster. Besides social divides, there are even geographical divides. The East favors Democratic and the West Republican. Shucks, North Carolina, why you gotta be all West Side Story and Romeo and Juliet and... I'll stop. As you can see from observing these mapadoodles, is that Republicans cover more surface area and make up much more of the western part, which is significant because of the white-dominated rural Appalachians, stretching back even to the colonial era, which are pretty much synonymous with Republicans. Miss Blue, but what are the more Democratic places? Good question. I was literally just going to address that. How did you know? It's not like you're me. Based on past evidence, these counties voted for the Democratic Party nominee in both 2008 and 2012. Only 3 counties voted Democratic, and the GOP won the vote 67.86% to 32.14%. The counties include Buncombe, fun, Orange, and Durham. These are some of the more significant counties that voted for the Democratic nominee in 2008. And while the majority of the counties voted Republican in 2008, the state as a whole voted Democratic because the counties that did vote Democratic had a higher population than many of the other counties. Catch my drift? Cities such as Greensboro, Charlotte, and Raleigh. Voter turnout this year is expected to be relatively high because of the 2008 and 2012's turnout, which was 69.6% and 68.3%. Although whether more or less will vote than in 2008 is unclear. The oddest thing about these statistics is how 200,000 more people voted in 2012 than in 2008, but there was a larger percentage accounted for in 2008. It could be because of the decrease in the Democratic voters by 53,000. Is the information that you really want to hear though? Well, how about the opinions of the candidates themselves? This is the point in the video where Stan narrates the voices of puppets in order to give you political insight. You're welcome, America. Please welcome Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, and their moderator as puppets.
North Carolina has the 8th most highest African American population in the country and the highest African American voter turnout of any state, 80%. In light of recent shootings, such as the killing of Keith Scott in Charlotte, how do you plan to secure the safety and the rights of all people from North Carolina?
Well, thank you for that question, Mr. Moderator. First off, we need to build better relationships between communities and police officers. Trust and respect for each other is essential. We need to develop guidelines for police officers to use de-escalating methods and avoid deadly force. To do this, we need to first support research for de-escalating strategies and fund training programs to give officers the resources to deal with situations. We need to increase funds for collaborative reform, which will support agencies that are applying the best practices in their collaboration with other agencies. We need to be informed of the impacts of crime, and to do this, data needs to be collected about the crime that can be used to improve policing strategies and better protect the civil rights of all people. We need to make body cameras available to all police officers to allow for justice in investigations of cases involving police. It is important to nip racial profiling in the bud by turning to our laws and supporting legislation that will prevent racial profiling in our communities and justice system.
Well, I agree with Secretary Clinton that there is simply too much violence in our cities. But what we need to do is bring back law and order. Stop and frisk was a very effective way to keep cities safe. We have a situation where we have our inner cities, African Americans, Hispanics are living in hell because it's so dangerous. Stop and frisk is not racial profiling, it's not unconstitutional, it's effective. It brought crime rates in New York way down, it takes guns away from the dangerous people. The judge that ruled it unconstitutional was very against the police, he didn't like the police. We are living in a time where the gangs rule the streets, full of dangerous immigrants, and the police are too afraid to do anything. I will bring back respect for the police, and I will bring back law and order.
The voices of the candidates don't always speak for themselves, though, if you know what I mean. So let us look critically on their inward motives. So let's look at the polls. Trump was leading in the polls from April to August ever so slightly in North Carolina. As he became increasingly disliked, Hillary took the lead in August. In the past 3 months, for the most part, Clinton has had a slight lead over Trump, except for in the end of September. Her lead in the polls has increased this month, although. Now this is where you take a step back and realize they never, ever, ever want to run for president. On their campaign trail, Trump has visited the great battleground state of North Carolina 8 times, and Hillary has visited 7 times. That's a lot of vacation time. If I had that many vacations, I could go anywhere I wanted. I could even time travel. I could even go back to the time of Genghis Khan. The Mongols, like the politicians, are the exception. Lastly, ads play a necessary role in any state, including North Carolina, except they generally have poor taste and, well, to plainly put it, they suck. Despite that, Clinton is spending $7 million on ads in the weeks leading up to the election, which is 16 times as much as Trump, who is only spending $440,000 for TV ads. That's pretty stingy for a billionaire. Maybe he just wants to ride on the free advertising in the media, or maybe Clinton is spending too much money. Let's take a look at the ads in North Carolina that have been playing recently.
Speaking to wealthy donors, Hillary Clinton called tens of millions of Americans deplorable.
You could put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables. The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it.
People like you, and you. Deplorable. You know what's deplorable? Hillary Clinton viciously demonizing hard-working people like you.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
I'm Hillary Clinton, and I approve this message.
I'd look her right in that fat, ugly face of hers. She's a slob.
She ate like a pig. A person who's flat-chested is very hard to be a 10.
Does she have a good body? No. Does she have a fat? Absolutely.
So you treat women with respect?
I can't say that either.
All right, good.
Rough. Looks like a sticky situation for North not only because it's the Tar Heel state. I'm not funny. In conclusion, I just want to start by saying eat your vegetables. They're good for you. But I should also summarize this blast of information for you, so here you go. All in all, the candidates have a tough fighting right in North Carolina, considering that it's so undecided. I mean, most swing states are, but when you're less uncertain of yourself than a traditional swing state like Florida, something's up. Check yourself. But in all seriousness, issues of racism, geographical divides, and even ads block the system from dividing amongst itself who is the better candidate. It was admitted that not even Trump's lewd video moved the polls in the state very much, which some were very shocked by. But it also makes sense because the state is modernly rooted in republicanism. Not even to mention that the presidential election will affect the state elections in North Carolina, causing the state to potentially turn on its head and go more towards Democratic. North Carolina is so volatile, as seen here, that every vote is precious for it. And this is why not only inside the state are the elections important, but for the whole entire country, the election inside North Carolina is also important. And that is why North Carolina is the most important of the swing states. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week. This crash course was written and produced by Cece Lucarelli, Grace Cotter, Aaron Ripple, and myself. Special shout out to Grace Cotter, Aaron Ripple, and Cece Lucarelli for the debates that you saw, the Stockholm debates, and also shout out to Aaron Ripple for making the handout that you could follow along with. Last but not least, special shout out to our history teacher, Mr. Miller, and this history period. I like Google.
See you next time on Crash Course. I like Crash Courses in the course.